Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to march forward through another training camp together. As always, you can always find our 100% free, 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name, of course, is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter. Today, we are going to talk about what we saw at Monday at Jaguars training camp and some key injury updates from head coach Liam Cohen. I think, obviously the biggest thing that I saw, and it was a toned down practice. They obviously are going to, they're going to have a physical practice, with the Miami Dolphins, for joint practice on Thursday down in Miami. So they're not going to just absolutely crush the guys, this week, especially coming off a game 2 days ago. So no pads. They did their alignment assignment period, as it's come to be known, 15-minute period where they are simply lining up and, pretty quickly after the ball is snapped, a whistle is being blown, just to make sure that they're getting down exactly what their roles and execution is supposed to be. That seems like it's been a really big part of what Liam Cohen wants to do and where he wants them to be accountable. And I can honestly say, these periods, they've done them, a few times now since their first preseason game. And I can say I haven't seen the Jaguars do these periods in the past, past regimes, etc. And we'll see how it translates, but it looked like they were better from an alignment assignment standpoint against the Saints in week 2 of the preseason. So, maybe that's part of it. We'll see as the course of the season goes on, if it carries over or not. But to me, a couple key things. Eric Armstead and Mason Smith on the field for team drills for the first time in training camp. Day 17, obviously Armstead dealt with a little bit of a back injury, a little bit of a veteran rest thing. Mason Smith was on PUP for, I believe, it was the first 14 practices of training camp. Worked off to the side for the next couple of practices. And then today was the most that we had seen Mason Smith. As outside of just purely individual drills. Again, no pads on, but once they got out of the alignment assignment period and they did actual offense versus defense, you saw Mason Smith and Eric Armstead out there on the field with the rest of their defense. It was a very positive sight to see, I'd say, if you're the Jaguars. I mean, it's two guys who you obviously, have a lot riding on throughout the course of the season. Two guys who they put a lot of eggs in those baskets at defensive tackle. I mean, you see, for example, they just traded for Colin Saunders in large part because, there were questions about what exactly do they have at defensive tackle. Liam Cohen himself said last Friday that, they'd like to think they have an idea of what they have at defensive tackle, but they don't quite know until they see it. So you saw Mason Smith and Eric Armstead get, some more serious run for the first time in training camp. Again, it was a practice without pads, so, they weren't going full contact or anything like that. So take that, for what you will, but I thought it was a very positive step just for those two to be on the field, just to see them with the rest of the team, seeing them lining up next to each other. I thought it was very positive for the Jaguars, and it was something that, they needed to see happen before week 1. We'll see if either guy plays in the third game of the preseason or if they kind of just, put them to the side and say, all right, just practice, get ready that way for week 1 and beyond. Of other injury note, you saw Tyson Campbell. He was working off to the side, but you did see him during the alignment assignment period out there with the defense. So I would think, obviously, I wouldn't imagine he probably plays this weekend, but I think the fact that they had him out there with the starting defense so he could know, okay, this is what you do with X, Y, and Z happens, it would indicate that he's not going to be out that long and that he will be back sooner than later. But he was working on the side when they went to 7-on-7 and team drills over the second half of the practice. Liam Cohen provided one update that I think is fairly significant. He said offensive lineman Wyatt Milam, the rookie out of West Virginia, is week to week. Milam played, I believe it was only 5 snaps against the Saints. Didn't play beyond that. He's somebody who he's picked up a lot of momentum over the last couple weeks. You've seen him play at guard. You've seen him play at tackle. He's even taken some first-team reps at right tackle as they've tried to find the best mix for guys. You know, the book on him coming out of college was his best position would be guard just because of his traits and his measurables. I actually think he's probably looked better at tackle, but week to week is obviously not ideal. That, I think, puts into doubt if he's ready week one. And, yeah, they do have some insurance policies because they did sign and add so many offensive linemen. I mean, outside of Wyatt Milam, they added 5 other offensive linemen in the draft or in free agency. And Patrick McCarry, Robert Hainsey, Fred Johnson, Shuma Edoga, and Jonah Monheim. And all those guys have the ability to play guard. All those guys, sans Monheim, have the ability to play tackle. It seems like that they've built their offensive line this specific way for situations like this, so that when a guy who has some positive momentum and a guy who has taken snaps with that first team unit goes down, that they don't have to hit the panic button. They have other options. You know, they still have Chuma Edoga, Anton Harrison, Fred Johnson, Patrick McCarry, who can all play right tackle. And, you know, if they wanted to put them at guard, they have guys who can do that too. Again, in Patrick McCarry, Chuma Edoga, Jonah Monheim. So, you know, they have options. But obviously, Milam being week to week is not ideal. Safety Caleb Ransaw is also still week to week. He's missed the bulk of training camp. It definitely seemed like they wanted him, you know, to enter training camp and not give him the role, but that it would have been ideal for them if he ended up winning, you know, that starting role opposite Eric Murray. But obviously the injuries kind of put a halt to that, so we'll see. It's either going to be Andrew Wingard or Darnell Savage starting at safety. Caleb Ransaw, we will see, you know, when he returns and exactly how long he will be out. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing and the biggest injury update is wide receiver / cornerback Travis Hunter. Now, Travis Hunter went through stretches. He went through individual drills. He did, just like Tyson Campbell, the alignment assignment. But him and Tyson Campbell more or less had the same day. You know, they went through, again, the individual drills, the alignment assignment, all that, etc. And then when it came to 7-on-7 and pure offense versus defense, you know, actually running plays, he was either working off to the side or he was on the sideline, you know, talking with wide receivers coach Edgar Bennett. So Liam Cohen said he is still day-to-day. You know, it's an upper body injury. Didn't play against the New Orleans Saints. He more or less said that, you know, he probably won't practice Wednesday, at least, you know, not in a full capacity. And they'll see where he's at. And that the hope is that he is available and ready for the joint practice against the Miami Dolphins. If there's even a chance that he's ready for that, then you can go ahead and assume that he's going to be ready for week one. So it's not a serious injury. I know that, you know, surely a lot of people on social media have probably ran with it. You know, oh, he's injury prone, can't play both ways already, et cetera, et cetera. I really feel like if last week was a regular season game, and this is just my feeling, this isn't something anybody has told me, but I feel like based on how they've talked about him, if last week was a regular season game, he probably would have played. You know, yeah, he's a rookie, but these preseason games are not worth risking anything. De'Ami Brown practiced fully today. He sat out the game on Sunday. He had what Liam Cohen called, you know, lower body stiffness. So, I think with Hunter, if there's any worry, oh, will he be ready week one? I would say that he will be. Again, this isn't any inside info or anything like that. This is just based on how they're talking about him. If they think that there's a chance that he can go Thursday against the Dolphins, if that's their goal, then obviously, you know, things look positive for him moving forward. But we will see how Thursday's practice goes. You know, Liam Cohen made a good point. He's mentioned the Dolphins have already had a couple joint practices, and they've had some physical ones. So perhaps this one won't be as fiery and physical as those other ones. But they're still, you know, hoping and, you know, expecting to get a lot of good work in, you know, especially the starters. He didn't say whether, you know, he knew or not if the starters would play on Saturday against the Dolphins. I would imagine the expectation is no. I mean, starting offense and starting defense have each gotten 3 drives in the preseason. They've gotten their feet wet and under them. You've seen good things from both. Obviously, the defense had the rough first week, but had a really strong second week. You've seen the offense score, you know, on 2 of their 3 drives, and it would be 3 for 3 if not for a Trevor Lawrence fumble. So, some positive things moving forward. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. As always, we'll be back next time.